Okay, so we're gonna start with the next session. Welcome in the big audience here. So you are in the session Manage Transformations with SAP Cloud ALM, SAP LeanIX, and SAP Signavio. Well, my name is Frank Kühn. I'm from the ALM Product Management, and I have with me
Jens Wieskamp from SAP LeanIX, driving with my team as a product manager the discovery of SAP landscapes.
Yes, and we will skip the disclaimer. Just to show you what we will explain you today. I will do a little intro on business transformation. Then I hand over to Jens for the LeanIX landscape discovery, where we show you the integration also in a live demo. Then on 3, I will take over showing you the project integration into Cloud ALM, also a little live demo. So I cross my fingers that this works. And finally, I would round up with the details on the Signavio process integration. Yep, so let's get started. Business transformation. All of you who were in the keynote yesterday should know this picture. Basically, every customer has the need to go through business transformation, and the key dimensions for successful transformation, we have here then processes, applications, people, data. Well, enterprise architecture is also very important, but this is all over the place. And this is where the business transformation from SAP also steps in, where you need to have the right solutions, which basically combine these 4 dimensions to really guiding you through the whole process. But it's not only about having the right tooling, it's also about having an end-to-end methodology for this continuous process. Well, think about Wieland's presentation. Well, he has for his RISE this washing machine, which is basically this infinity loop just in a circle. But that's basically also here the idea that this is a process that continuously is ongoing, and you need to get through that as fast as or faster and faster. That's basically Wieland's washing machine. And we need to also accelerate that with best practices. And there are different kinds of best practices. So starting on enterprise architecture, there are reference architectures we have within SAP. Think about processes with best practice processes. Or then if you think about the application part in the implementation, we have the activate methodology, which we utilize then in Cloud ALM for execution of the project. And then automation, and sure the tools need to be integrated, which is topic of today. And then you learned also in the session before that there is also business AI on the way, which helps you then also to accelerate you on this journey. Okay, let's have a look to the tooling that we have at SAP for this business transformation. And there we have complete set, I would say, to cover the topics. We have LeanIX for the enterprise architecture. We have Signavio for process management. Enable Now and WalkMe we will have then for the people part, and the application part we are here in the ALM Summit. I don't need to talk about that. It's about SAP Cloud ALM, and we're partnering up with Tricentis for the test automation. In the session today, we will focus on the enterprise architecture part, the integration with LeanIX, and we show what's coming up in Q4 then with the Signavio integration. Well said that. Setting the scene, I would hand over to Jens for the landscape discovery.
All right, thank you, Frank. So, landscape discovery. Basically, the idea is, well, we want to give you a nice view on your SAP landscape, right? So that you can explore kind of what is really up and running, that you have clear transparency. So again, coming from that spinner, basically saying, well, we need, in order to inform all your transformation journeys, well, it starts with a clear and crystal clear view on your as-is landscape. So what do I really have? And then I can really make informed decisions kind of on my own, and working also with colleagues and working with people from SAP. I guess it also showed up in the washing machine from yesterday, right? That the idea is to really engage early on to say, well, this is the problem ahead of me. I need kind of some input to help coming up with the best kind of target picture that I want to transform towards. And that's where then the as-is or the discovery kicks in to say, well, you don't need to look in different tools and collect that information and then start planning. That should be automated as much as it can. So how does that work? Well, basically, a quick look at, for those that have not kind of used or seen LeanIX so far, an offering from us coming with a very clear data model helping with these questions. Maybe highlighting a few of these. So at the centerpiece, applications. So what are the different applications of the technology that I'm using? And then a couple of, we call it relations to things such as, well, what are the business capabilities? So what is the reason or the context I'm using a specific application for? Is it for marketing or for procurement, right, to group your overall landscape? At the same time, also to bring in interfaces. So how are systems connected to each other? So if I touch something, well, whom to talk to, whom to check with, that this also works post-transformation, or maybe to leverage things that I have already to come up with, new ideas, how to make better use of my landscape. Also, a kind of a look at the technical underpinnings, so we call it IT components. So what are the different, in the on-premise world, pieces of software, even pieces of hardware I'm using, right? So I have dependencies, or in cloud and SaaS products, what are the underlying PaaS or SaaS services, that you also understand this kind of decomposition. Also going back to the spinner, there's also the data dimension, right? So what types of data are stored and processed in which of my applications, that you can also reply, for example, to GDPR requests, finding out which systems need to be checked at kind of on a higher level because they hold sensitive data, for example. And since we're talking about transformations, there's also the last dimension I want to highlight here. So we call it initiatives. So things I'm planning to do, so that you also have in one system, so in this case LeanIX, a visibility into, well, this is where I stand today, but I do plan to change something in the future, that you also have this dimension to say, well, there are some changes in discussion, already in implementation, which I guess we will see then also in the second part when talking about the sync with Cloud ALM projects. On the right side, you see kind of a couple of things that we do, for example, from a roadmap, from a report perspective, but maybe better to show this in the product later. Quickly going back to, the overall title, so as-is or landscape discovery, so helping you to get this easy view at your as-is landscape, right? So discovering what is up and running in my SAP system. And historically, LeanIX is coming from really working closely with the enterprise architects, and they often are confronted with, a partial fragmented view, right? So a lot of that is, talking to people, collecting information from people to get this overview, right? And that's where we want to help with, because reality is often, I have this feeling or some partial knowledge, there are some systems, and either it's kind of gaps or it's outdated, right? So there are some things that are simply missing, I'm not aware of, because somebody, forgot about it or said, that's not relevant. Or it's simply outdated and no longer the reality. So that's one of the goals that we say, we want to move from, I somehow know maybe, to I have a clear view, and it's also in a very structured way, right? So that's the one part. And how does that work? As I said, maybe best to jump quickly into a product demo. So basically, we connect with, in this case, Cloud ALM. So let me quickly move over to show how that works. So here we do set up one of the integrations that we have. So I prepared it already so that we don't need to wait for the execution. Right, I just provide credentials to have access to my Cloud ALM, making sure that you see the data from your specific customer numbers that you selected and bring it into LeanIX. And then we find the results after it's executed. It's executed on a daily basis, so it's always kept up to date in what we call an inbox. I guess it also showed up in Frank's session yesterday. We don't put it right into the system from the beginning to keep it still nice and clean, that you can say, these are parts of my landscape I worry about and I need to have one, and maybe I want to exclude certain things. And then what you can do, well, you can kind of look into details and then, for example, here look at what is up and running in my marketing cloud, right? So I'm interested to transform maybe something around marketing. So this is a system I want to bring in. We help you to decide how to bring it into your LeanIX workspace. And once you're happy, you can go ahead and import it. And now let's travel a bit in time and say, well, we have done it. And then we find these items in our inventory. And not going to, right? And then we find an entry as the following. So I prepared this a little earlier, just to show what does it mean to have now an application within LeanIX. So we call it a so-called fact sheet. So it's basically a structured representation of this application with, well, core information, right? So here you can see, well, what is the name, obviously, what is it supposed to do, right? So what is the functionality underneath? Life cycle, for example, often a very relevant information to say, well, this is when a system got implemented and maybe already putting the forecast, well, in 2 years we will migrate away, right? So that you have visibility into what's already known about the system to happen. One of my favorites always is the so-called Relation Explorer to understand, if we go back to the data model I shared earlier, what are these relations now for my fact sheet? So here I see, well, this marketing cloud is now here used for lead management, right? I can also see, and that's one integration that we have between LeanIX and Signavio, what is the process context, right? So it's used in the attract to retrain process maybe, right? Who is using it, right? So here it's the Americas team within the marketing group, right? So I know, okay, this America tenant of Marketing Cloud, that's what they are using. So I know also whom to reach out if I want to check if it's fulfilling their needs or if they have any ideas how to improve. Data, already mentioned, right? So understanding in context of a single application, what are the different pieces of data that are being processed, stored, and held within the system. Interfaces, right? So who is interacting with such a system and what interfaces are available. And last but not least, just to also wrap up the meta model view here, right? So this underpinning, right? So it's my application of technology, right? And IT components here being now, for example, the SaaS hosting provided by SAP of the Marketing Cloud, and also here, for example, visibility, where is it running, right? So that's one often use case within LeanIX to understand, well, I don't know, classical example, do I store the data for my European customers within Europe, or do I need to worry about data exchange with the Americas? Here it's all nice and tidy because the Americas tenant is running in the States and the European counterpart would be within Europe. Right, so that's keeping in mind, this is basically all, right, so this existence of the system, that's what we also see here, right, so that has been discovered automatically, right, so this is this landscape discovery to say, well, you need, you automatically know I need to worry about this Marketing Cloud tenant because I found it, and then you can go ahead, for example, typically what you do, you assign an owner and say, well, I guess here it's, I've chosen, touchpad, Nathan Fairbanks is running this system, right? So also one often very helpful information to say, well, in the sheer kind of amount of applications that you have within a company, finding out whom to talk to, right? So who is responsible, who is interested in certain systems. You don't need to know it or store it in a wiki or somewhere. You really have it kind of right where you need it, and that person is then visible and can be easily approached. That's one view on, well, these fact sheets, as said here, then directly coming from the discovery. And of course, there's not a single fact sheet only, as you have seen earlier, right? So this is what we then put into our so-called inventory. So here you see all the different examples. What can you do with it? Right, so for example, reporting, as indicated already on the overview, we have a lot of different reports which you can leverage that you know all these details about single applications, data objects, and so on, right? And then you can generate insights. For example, you can go ahead and say, well, how well are my different applications fitting the needs? So here, for example, you could do kind of this view to understand, what we then call often the technical fit. So how well is a solution suited from a technical perspective to, well, to run, and map it out against the business criticality, right? So here, well, we have a big box, which is kind of a big bubble, which is good around, well, all my mission critical systems are at least adequate and most are fully appropriate, right? So that's things that then the owner would say, well, this is kind of doing well, I don't need to worry about it here. And you see already there are kind of two shaky ones. So where we say, well, this is these days not the appropriate solution anymore. It's only business operational, so it's not that bad. But the example here would be, let's assume we run a company selling muesli boxes, right? So, and maybe we are still doing kind of as in good old days, like a weekly Excel magic, getting KPIs in, right? So that's what we use as status quo. And we feel, well, that's not the best thing that we can do. So maybe that's something where we can transform and roll out something more modern and more suitable. Well, how could you do that? Well, again, you can leverage a lot of the functionality that we have in LeanIX to say, well, I now know what is my as-is configuration or landscape, and I can, for example, well, work with diagrams to also plan out where I want to be, and then maybe after a discussion with SAP experts on our side or within your team, you can then go ahead and draw such lovely diagrams. Maybe quickly showing, right, so you may have already seen it. It's coming basically from our solution reference architecture that we publish on Discovery Center. You can import it to get kind of the nice look and feel. Maybe I can collapse the side panel a little bit. And then you maybe notice already, this is now leveraging that we know this is not only a diagram, we know these are these little fact sheets underneath, right? So kind of all these boxes here, for example, indicate now what is the life cycle, so that's why they are color-coded. So these are active systems. So here we find again our marketing cloud that we looked at earlier, right? So I can interact with it, right? So I see immediately, okay, this is the application. I see additional metadata like the life cycle. I can even navigate to the fact sheet again, right? So it's all in context, right? So it's not just a box on a diagram. This is, well, a representation of the system, right? So all nicely embedded. And then you can see here, maybe the company at this point is already processing on a transformation from on-premise S/4HANA into the cloud. So that what you see here, that's something they maybe can do as part of this transformation as well, to build now a solution to really have this cockpit view on their overall muesli production, collecting data now from different sources that they have already, using BTP services to put it into work zone, and then maybe have a more modern approach to, well, this cockpit view on their overall production and marketing and overall success. Well, and once now, well, after those discussions, then you came up with the team to say, well, that's something we want to do, right? So here above now, you can also link it to this initiatives that I mentioned earlier, right? So something you decide and then kind of get the approval to say, well, that's the way we go. We want to move away from Excel files. We want to roll out this muesli management cockpit. Then we talk about an initiative, and that, I guess, would then hand over to Frank to say, well, what can we now do with Operation Nutcracker to move from Excel to workzone?
Do you have one more slide for the roadmap?
You're right. Thank you. Already went too deep into the muesli business, right? So just a quick reminder, right? Diagrams, something also to look at in the PDF that you find on the agenda. Indeed, a roadmap also a good topic always, right? So we started now with the discovery, what we have seen already around cloud and SaaS. That is already up and running since a couple of months. We are almost ready in the release of the counterpart for on-premise, that we also discover your on-premise systems. As you have seen, we go basically through Cloud ALM and use it as a way to authenticate. So that's basically your entry door. And then we continue. So I guess two things to call out here, going into BTP service discovery. So what are the different services that I'm using, also in which of my sub-accounts I'm using these. And we want to join forces with the Cloud ALM team around observing your integrations to come up with these suggestions around interfaces. So which different systems interact with each other, because these bridges between systems are super critical and often even kind of more complicated to keep up to date, right? I mean, they're always changing, and so that's why we want to help there as well, to say, well, to get these suggestions for interfaces. And you see, we also will then also look into things running on top of BTP. So if you build your own BTP or other extensions, to also bring them in as applications into LeanIX. So you see a lot of our on our roadmap, and on the PDF you can actually click there and find references to our roadmap on roadmapleanix.net. And now finally, Frank, thanks for the reminder.
Okay, now I need to take over. Yes, he created a fact sheet, and basically we build then the integration of the fact sheet into the projects, because it's clear that on the strategic planning that Jens just showed, that's really a task on the LeanIX side, really coming from strategy, doing really this high-level planning. But then when it comes to project execution, this is done in Cloud ALM, and in order to really have this, getting this overall execution progress over your initiative, ideally you want to get the status in LeanIX, because that was the initial starting point of your transformation there, and you want to have everything in there. So that's why I would also jump into the live demo on this part, and I need to go to this fact sheet that we just created, and okay. Now there are two ways. So on the one hand side, I could go and say, out of the fact sheet, I create now a Cloud ALM project. Well, in this case, someone was faster from the project team, already created a project on Cloud ALM side. So then there is an easy way to say, okay, let me link that to the existing project already. And I can just go here into this HR tracking part and say, okay, let me link the existing one. And there I should have a project which is called the same name. And then I can just say start sync. Then it takes some seconds, and what you see now is, well, out of the Cloud ALM project, we got all these time box information about the phases, we get the milestones in, and we have also here this overall project status. In Cloud ALM, the overall project status, that's always something that's manually maintained, because the project manager, it's finally his decision to say which status the project has. But not only that, we have also here on the front, on the first page of the fact sheet, if we scroll down a little bit, we will see, oh no, this I need to refresh, I'm sorry. I will see there also the task progress, the overall task progress I will see here. The execution progress is of 30%. Now, but if I want to get more details, because it looks to me like it needs attention, so let's jump directly also then to Cloud ALM, and there we jump to the overview page of the project to get then, if I'm really interested in more details, that's always our rule. Let's go then really to the tool who's doing the details. And there I basically then jump here to the project overview and see, okay, well, there is something blocked. Then I talk to the guy why this is blocked, and maybe it turns out it's not really a big problem. So I can go back. Let me change that to everything is okay for the project. Now this is live demo, and we closed the browser before, so everything is loading. Bad prepared. Anyway, let me change that to, where is it? Needs attention, no, everything is on track, back on track, everything is fine. Now, how do I find the way back from Cloud ALM to LeanIX? And there we integrated here then in the project setup part, under the integration scenarios, we have now external integrations, and LeanIX is registering them also in there. And from here, I have the easy way then also to find a way back to the LeanIX fact sheet. And just to close then the loop here. Now it's not yet synced, and I go just to the agile tracking part, and if I press the sync button once again, it's regularly executed normally once a day. I don't know exactly the timing, how often this is executed, but you see, well, status is refreshed and you are fine. So now you have again current status on LeanIX side to have the transparency there. That's it for the project integration. It's quite simple, but already usable today, like the landscape discovery. And now I have a lot of time for the Signavio part, which I didn't want to have. But anyway, that's okay. So let's talk about the process integration. Well, last summit, we only had this consulting solution. So we are better now, but let me first, before we go into the details a bit more, let me first show you a little bit, again, this process and why we need that integration. And therefore, let's exercise one process increment, how it walks through the systems, just to get an understanding. Also, then you see where integrations are needed. And let me first put all the tooling we have on the slide. So we have Signavio, we have Cloud ALM in the middle for the implementation part. Also, I put LeanIX there for the enterprise architecture, and we see when both integrations kick in here, and then also Tricentis for the test automation. So the whole story starts basically with the landscape discovery. First, you want to discover your overall IT infrastructure before you can start really with the transformation. That's what Jens showed, having this really getting out of Cloud ALM the data about your SAP landscape, and then you can analyze that in LeanIX. Well, then when it comes to the processes, well, starting point is always get an understanding of, well, okay, I put some milestones in that we need later on. You need to get an understanding of the process. So what is your as-is process? And with the help of Signavio, you can then there do also things like compare it against other industry benchmarking, do other KPI benchmarking against standard processes in SAP. So this is really starting point, get an understanding, how are my processes running? Are they good or bad, to get a feeling, okay, which processes do I want to optimize? And out of that, that's then the starting point, identifying the right processes, and then it goes further of, well, you start to design your new to-be process. And on this journey to designing that, well, we have also then the input from, well, best practices. We have best practice process content, but also Signavio gives you tooling at hand, or with the process insights, you get there correction recommendations or also innovation recommendations, how you could optimize or innovate a certain process. Also, you see the arrows down to LeanIX, so also they have a deep integration with Signavio and LeanIX that you have on LeanIX side, also then the overview over the processes running in these systems. And then finally, you reach somewhere the point, and was this milestone line that came up, the to-be process finally gets approved. And that's basically then this point where you hand over the to-be process to the implementation guys. And now the tricky part, well, yes, normally when you design the to-be process, you also already note down the requirements. So it's clear we need to cover that part also in the integration, that the requirements, you cannot say you just hand over the diagram from Signavio to Cloud ALM, and later on you maintain all the requirements then on Cloud ALM side. That will not work. Not in order to have a smooth integration, we definitely need to cover that topic as well. So just to highlight where a little bit we need to focus on. And then the journey goes on. You start the implementation, where the architects break down requirements into user stories and features. Maybe there are also some project tasks that need to be done for certain things. And once implementation, so the build of the solution is done, then we somewhen have the new process implemented, and it comes to testing. Testing is, first of all, in order to have acceptance testing, you do normally manual testing, which you do in Cloud ALM. There we have all the capabilities you need for manual testing. And sooner or later, especially in these transformations where you regularly change things, or even with cloud products where you often get new functionality shipped, there is definitely the need to do test automation, and therefore we have the Tricentis part for the test automation. So in cloud world, testing is getting more and more important, and you need to get it automated, because otherwise the big effort, also as Wieland explained for the RISE topic, is always in the testing part. So testing is a lot of effort for getting nothing at the end, except that you know that the process is working, which is also good. And then finally successfully tested, and then we can go into really the deployment of the code, that we bring that to production. Well, and then let's take the bracket around that. That's basically the project that we have, and the project synchronization to LeanIX, to really get this transparency of what is my implementation process doing, bringing that then also transparent into LeanIX. And then finally, when we have everything implemented, there is still then the people dimension, where we need to make sure that the people are able to use these new processes. Well, then with Enable Now, and in context of this complete transformation tool chain where Signavio is in place, then the enablement would also be linked to Signavio, because Signavio is the place for the business process management. They have also this process portal where everyone can have a look to the current processes that are running in the system. So then this linkage is not on Cloud ALM side, but there on Signavio side, if you think about the real end-to-end tool chain. Nevertheless, we still need the people enablement also in Cloud ALM, because not every customer has Signavio in place. Okay, and finally, then we also need to trigger again the Signavio guys, that they know that the process is finally set live. So that's basically the complete cycle of one increment for a new process, or for one process optimization. And you see that the points where we need to have integration basically is really for this handover of the approved process, including there also the requirement part. And finally, the link back would be at the end when the process is set live, that we also get that back. Now, the question is it rocket science to get that done? And picking up a little bit Michael's moonshot theory. And this fits also quite good to this one here. Well, for me, it's making espresso is sometimes rocket science. And we were at NASA this year on vacation, and this nice cup fits perfectly to my espresso, because this is sometimes really tricky to have the parameters all right in place. But for the Signavio integration, I would say, let's stay with Michael's analogy of the moonshot. Well, first we need to get to orbit, and getting to orbit is what we ship you in Q4. This is really the first standardized integration that we built. Maybe going a little bit into the technical part of what or how it is built. At the end, it will be also a connector running on BTP. I don't say similar to the solution manager adapter. It's really something completely different. And maybe you know that Wolf was doing process management before here in Cloud ALM, and he searched for new opportunities, and we didn't lost him completely. So he went to the Signavio guys, heading now the engineering team there, and he took also the learnings from how we built Cloud ALM over to them, and they build now this connector exactly the same way. They use deploy with confidence. They have single trunk development, just one code line. They can deploy daily. They have full test automation in that thing. So that's really this first thing to bring that to orbit, that we have that up and running. Also, then connectivity, we are trying to automate, maybe even with the first version, as good as possible, that there is no need to go to BTP cockpit generating service keys, stuff like that. And then once we have that, based on this robust connector, we can start incrementally extend this stuff. And let's go now to the short click-through demo that we can. Oh, I have some minutes left, and show you what this first version will be able to do. Yo. Give me a second. This should. Okay, it's just loading. Yeah. So the good thing is, now they can also adapt Signavio UIs on Signavio side to make that not like the consulting solution that you had to start a governance process in order to kick off any synchronization. This will be really built into the UI of the Signavio process collaboration hub at the moment. So first you need to make sure that you really get the latest version of the process, so it's not a published one. Don't get confused with published. Published in Cloud ALM sense means you can use it and assign requirements. In their case, published means the process is live and it's really the one that is currently used. So if they design a new one, this is their so-called preview. So we have also there with the naming a little bit to struggle or to map that correctly. So if you select the latest process where you did some adaptions, then you see here, well, there is another task added, and from there you can then go. First, and this is just, you need to make sure that the connectivity is set up. That's clear. That's a one-time effort. Let's not go into the details of that one. But then you can, out of the UI from Signavio, directly say, well, sync that diagram with Cloud ALM. So what happens, it's really moving the BPMN from Signavio to Cloud ALM. Once you change it, you will also have the possibility, when you sync again, it's updating the BPMN on Cloud ALM side. And we have defined clear ownership that, well, the process modeling then happens on Signavio side, which means on Cloud ALM side, you cannot modify it anymore. So we remove the edit button that you can do that. And if you want to change it, there is then a link back to Signavio that you always change then the diagrams on Signavio side. Also for the reason that, well, if you have then approval process for changes in the Signavio side, you go through that once again before you can update then the diagram on Cloud ALM side. So, well, when you press the sync button, you get some nice pop-ups to fear you, and then basically you sync, and then you can either open it directly from this link, or you have here on top then also the possibility to jump to Cloud ALM to the diagram. So here we are now in SAP Cloud ALM. At the moment, the first version will be the same like the consulting solution was doing. So you synchronize one diagram from Signavio into a solution process where there is one solution process flow diagram. So that's what you see here. But this we will extend, that you can in one of the next increments that we ship, we also want to have the capability that on Signavio side you can group or put several diagrams together to put them in one solution process on Cloud ALM side. And also, well, one of the first things would also be on Signavio side that they take care of their governance processes or about their approval processes, that you can make that also event triggered, that once something is approved on Signavio side, at that point it gets moved over directly. Maybe event was a good hint. So the good thing of this new connector is that with that they have also access to the events on the Signavio platform. So they can, whenever there happens something on Signavio side, they get these events. In the future they will also get then eventing from our side in case something is well, finally it's only relevant then for the setting something live. This event we also need to provide to them. So it will be really event-based communication, and there is no need, like for the solution manager connector, to have really an operation team taking care of looking into log files that something went wrong. So this we definitely need to get rid of. Okay, and then that's it basically. Not that much to show, but I'm happy to show you then next year with all the increments coming up in the part, showing you then the further integration. Going back to the slide. So now what's, and I just do that on the talk track basically. So what's coming really up for the scope in 2025? It's hard to bring the Signavio colleagues to really providing a roadmap. They have strict roadmap item governance, saying they only bring something on the roadmap when everything is 100% planned and clear. So that's why I cannot show you really a roadmap for 2025. But we have clear agreements there and a clear plan in which direction we are heading. So as I said before, first is making this event-driven thing better, grouping things together, and then already the next thing will be to get this requirement integration done, because this is essential to do really a fit-to-standard workshop from Signavio side. Because as I explained in the keynote also, the clear target is a persona needs to be able to work in their native environment. Native environment means process modeling guys working in Signavio, so the fit-to-standard workshop is happening there. Also requirements need to be tracked there, but we created them directly in Cloud ALM side. And then it's going forward also, well, process hierarchy is then one of the next topics. Bring that over also to Cloud ALM. And one of the next things, as soon as we have then all the libraries also on Cloud ALM side, that we have certain libraries we want to exchange. For example, application library, they are interested in on Signavio side. On the other hand side, we will have process step library will be then something which is owned on Signavio side, and we need to be able to bring that over then also to Cloud ALM side.
Frank, do you think we have some time for a few questions? Or
yes, I think. I would say I'm done. I talked too much. And then we already have
more than one.
2 questions, 3 questions. Okay.
Mike?
Hi, thanks for the info. I have 2 questions. The first one is, what is really expected from this enterprise architect to do once we import the project from Cloud ALM? Like, is the architect expected to maintain something there? Which tool is leading in this case?
Leading for the project is Cloud ALM. It's more giving them the information on what is the current status in the projects. It's not that when you maintain milestones or stuff, or if you would change that on LeanIX side, it would not change the project.
But the idea is really that kind of you benefit from this transparency, right? So something deep in the engine room shows there is something needs attention, right? And then that person who kind of needs to look at sees it then in the LeanIX in this case to see, well, there's something ongoing with this project, so maybe I need to talk to the project lead, find out if it affects my downstream dependency, and then everything can march on, right? But if it's just sitting in Cloud ALM as a project, maybe the person depending on it is not aware, right? So that's really the idea, to really bridge these different systems, and as Frank also meant, right? So you should work in the expert tool where it naturally belongs, and then other tools, like in this case LeanIX, benefit from transparency, right?
Okay, and my second question is the information flow between Signavio and LeanIX. I didn't quite get that clearly. Like, what is also shared between these two?
So maybe that's then worth kind of a deep dive, kind of what we do then between Signavio and LeanIX. Whereas here it was only kind of looking at Signavio and Cloud ALM. Happy to maybe share a little more details. I guess you find us anyways at the coffee table in the main entrance. Then maybe we can follow up there.
Okay, thanks.
There was one at the end and one here, and I think then we anyway need to, yeah. Then we are out. Oh, no, there was at the complete end, but okay.
Should I? Okay. We will be able to futurely transfer our hierarchy from Solution Manager to SAP Cloud ALM with the selective data transfer. If we want to have it later on SAP Signavio, is there also an interface plan to do Cloud ALM to SAP Signavio?
So you have it in Solution Manager at the moment, right?
We have it in the Solution Manager, and we are going to transfer it to SAP Cloud ALM with selective data transfer. If we want to use SAP Signavio later on, can we then transfer it to SAP Signavio first?
That would be the consequence, but we are not there yet. But maybe there is the need then for one-time import of the bringing then that over. Well, or you have it, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe at the end, and then one in the front, and then we are definitely.
I have also two questions.
Maybe one, because we have another one here, and we are already over time.
Is it possible with LeanIX to link interface with customer Cloud ALM, or only one Cloud ALM with its project?
For the
interface or the initiative?
By LeanIX, is it possible to put or to join a customer Cloud ALM?
Mm-hmm. I mean, what you integrate with is basically the customer-specific Cloud ALM, right? So that was, as part of the setup step, you connected to your Cloud ALM tenant. And that's where then the data is kind of getting discovered from. And the same setup exists also for the project sync.
Mm-hmm. It's also possible to another customer tenant, for example,
no.
the business.
Well, in theory, yes, but
at this point, we integrate with a single one. I guess maybe also worth in a deep dive, kind of how you can handle if there are multiple tenants, how you set it there up.
And
one the final one over here, and then maybe.
Wie lange haben wir noch, Melanie?
I guess -2.
Question related to APIs for LeanIX. Is there a way to get the information out and import somewhere else, especially to ServiceNow, because the connectivity between the CMDB and the business structure is essential. Mm-hmm. Is something planned or is something available?
So LeanIX comes definitely with rich APIs in both directions. So we are definitely kind of an API-first product. So everything that you can do via the UI, both to retrieve and change data, is available via APIs. So that's definitely something. Talking about ServiceNow, we also have an integration with ServiceNow, which simplifies kind of that split already. So I guess maybe also another deep dive worth. We have the marker from the more technical side to talk to you through. But overall, APIs are kind of a big topic for LeanIX in both directions.
Maybe the last question here from the front, and then
auto discovery, LeanIX. Is it working like the real-time auto discovery for SAP?
Like the real what?
Realtech auto discovery for SAP, the Realtech CMDB part of the solution manager.
No, it's different. So
Or works it only with SAP Cloud appliances?
at the moment, we have the information of all cloud service a customer has. We have in SAP Cloud ALM. So that's the first thing that is currently working. Well, when you connect then also an on-prem or private cloud system via you need to do that configuration in SDPI to get that connected. Then we have also all the information of this on-prem and private cloud system in Cloud ALM, and they can utilize that. Nevertheless, for the on-prem discovery, there are also other mechanisms then in place to get the information from the SAP backend systems to see what information is there, and this is what Jens then will utilize to discover then also on-prem and private cloud systems.
So non-SAP is not discovered via the SAP integration. We do have, for example, integrations with Entra ID and Okta to read out also kind of what we can discover there. So that's something we also discover around non-SAP systems. So, I mean, that's anyways important for us, right? I mean, realistically, most customers have also a non-SAP footprint. So LeanIX then also is capable to handle both these worlds. So there's also auto-discovery options definitely around there. And happy to maybe also go deeper at the conference.
Thanks very much. If there are more questions, we are here and later on downstairs.